Plus the
doesn't
salaries
have-
for each position. There's
Oh, there it is. All right.
yeah. Again, you'll see reductions because we had transfer of personnel, we had some retirements and some resignations. And so in a couple of spots, you'll see a small reduction from a position from the prior year to the current year because the new person filling that position is at a little bit of a lower rate. The elimination of the operations manager position, but replaced with a natural resource officer position, which fills the animal control need in town. And other than that, no real changes on the admin piece. There was a slight reduction because of the prior admin person, I think was a 37.5 hour, and the new position is a 35 hour. So a slight change in the FTE on that. But by and large, that explains the salary changes. And I think it was overall negligible increase, well, compared to other departments.
Does anybody have some questions on why don't we start with the salaries and then we have some questions and then we can go into the expenses?
Okay.
I have one further addition, sorry, meant to say. It's not in front of me. We continue to fund the maintenance foreman position, 50% from the rental revolving fund that we established at town meeting. So you'll see it in here at the full amount of the salary, but there's a reduction of 50%. That's because they're charging that salary to the rental revolving fund for the various properties that we manage.
You talking about Teresa?
Scott,
Nope,
is that Scott?
Facilities foreman.
Okay, so that's his one question.
So
Yeah, you'll see that down where, okay, Dave White's in the FY24 line. You'll see Scott Baird.
So is the difference there is just the salary grade the individual came in?
Yeah, so we had a new
Okay.
person replacing him came in at a lower grade or
Okay.
step than the prior person.
Now, is the reason why the animal control responsibilities are now here? Is the reason because if you left them, I know it's all shared and all that stuff, but if you left them over in public safety, there'd be all these requirements beyond what is really needed for an animal control officer that would have to be dealt with.
Part of that, but mostly it's much more simple and practical. The person that took on those responsibilities in the police department, who was a police officer and had a background when we shared it with Wellfleet doing the animal control function for 2 towns, resigned. So we had nobody.
Oh, the
And so-
person that was in Wellfleet that we shared, we were.
Then we
giving-
hired
I think
here.
We were giving them 30,000 to help pay for him. Then that person was hired by us, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
And that person has now left us.
yes.
But you're not replacing him in the police department, because,
Replacing the police officer, but not, because he was a uniformed officer.
yeah, but again, with all the requirements.
Yeah, with all the requirements to be an officer, it was harder for him to
Yes.
get somebody to
Yeah.
agree to.
Yeah.
So it
Exactly.
was more practical to
Yeah.
bring it to natural resources where
Yeah.
we're,
Makes sense.
Was that a full-time animal control officer in the police department?
No,
It wasn't. So it was part of a full-time officer's duties.
Right.
So the chief didn't pick up a head really,
no.
when he relinquished that responsibility, picked up part of a person. Okay.
So I have a question too. I noticed that under the last year's budget, you've lost 6 people left. And you've got 6 new people. Have you had trouble filling the positions?
actually so right now, all the positions as of December are filled.
Mhm.
And last year was a tough year to try to get them filled. And once we fill them, I think we're in good shape now for a while.
The trouble, I think, John, correct me if I'm wrong, was on the machine operator
Mhm.
level. I mean, that's a little more challenging than
Credentialing.
Credentials, yeah.
Someone that's
the
got
license.
Yeah, trying to find somebody that meets your credentials.
Exactly, yeah.
One of the things we've trying to do is trying to be supportive of anyone that doesn't have a licenses, provide some licensing, some training for them to get the licenses. So try to bring people up through, the skilled laborer is kind of the starting position within DPW. So if we get someone as a skilled laborer, but they have an interest in obtaining additional licenses, we'll help them with that. But ultimately, if we end up utilizing those licenses and they're actually working in the role of a machine operator, what you'll see in the budget documents over a course of time is somebody that might have been a skilled laborer in the prior year and now might need to be paid as a machine operator,
Mhm.
because that's, the correct thing to do if you're working in that
Got
capacity.
the training and is now able to.
Well, it's not just the training, but if you're actually working in that capacity, we
Mhm.
kind of have to pay you in that
Oh, yeah,
capacity.
yeah.
So is that what we're seeing, Rich, then when we look at like McCarthy, Santos and Young? Yeah, those guys got a pretty good step from year over year.
That-
looks like about 10%.
That's just contractual, for them.
Is that
Um,
CBA? So in the other budget, some of the other budgets, we had none allocated for the CBA. I don't see it here.
Yeah.
So how do we compare the
I
2
think
years?
that means that I had the data properly allocated at the time, so it
Okay.
ought to be. There were, one of the big things with the CBA with the steel workers. So there might, try and work off a little bit of memory, but there might have been a couple of positions that were elevated because they're significantly underpaid.
Mhm.
And what we got out of that negotiations from an administrative side was previously the contracts were almost, pay scales were almost written to individuals as opposed to positions. And so when we created the positions and graded them into a classification plan, that resulted in some increased pay for the machine folks.
Okay, so that's probably what the 3 are that we're seeing here in the middle,
think
that
so.
are heavy equipment operators, heavy motor equipment operators. Okay, so there was some CBA in here. That was probably allocated in 24, but then there was some grade adjustment based on the skills.
Yes.
So now you get apples to apples with people in slots.
And we have, slots and we have gradation between positions. So a skilled operator is a certain amount
Right,
less than equipment operator. I mean, heavy equipment operators, percentage higher than the regular equipment operator.
but now it's based on the job and the skill. It's not based on the individual.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question on overtime. I'm looking, and I know you might not have the exact same pages that I have, but on page 110 where you have the summary sort of, there's overtime listed of 41,000 for the fiscal year 25 budget. But then on the next page where it outlines everything in greater detail, it's got overtime of 66,000.
What do you want?
I'm seeing the 41,000,
And then things, when, on the next page, when things are a little bit more outlined, it's got 66.
See that? On 114, I see it's 41.
This has 41, and then on the next page is 66.
Oh, I
Sanitation, natural resources.
I think probably, I don't have it in front of me, but I think I know what your issue is. On the appropriation summary page, if you're looking at that, that shows snow and ice separate as a separate line item. But when I broke it out in that second page, account summary,
Mhm.
I think I include overtime that's in the snow and ice
snow and
budget
ice
in
overtime.
that.
Oh,
So 4160.
And so if you looked up the snow and ice page, you'd see that there's salaries in the snow and ice budget. Which you could reasonably anticipate.
So generally, as I always go back to the last actual number here, which is the 23, so there's a pretty big pop, but that's because of the money for the,
CBA.
collective bargaining?
no, the animal control officer
Oh.
wasn't in his budget in 23. Right, it was over in public safety or the police somewhere, right?
But that was a net though, because we went down a position by an assistant general manager. And so, not, it wasn't net, but the,
Oh, that wasn't from 24? I thought that was
No.
between 20.
So
23, Rick, we had an operations manager, but we didn't have an extra natural resources officer, so it should be pretty much a wash.
But you did in 24, according to this. The 24 budget had 87, right?
Right.
Had that. Or, I'm confused then, because if that's the case, because I see, you know,
What page are you on right now, Rick?
He's on,
Then 113.
113, yeah. So the position, you're questioning the 87,000?
yeah, that was in 24, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that
So we're
that he
taking-
was there 23.
Part of 23, yes. Or. Yeah,
Oh, the 23. But that wasn't a
the
position,
position,
that position must
the
have been there.
position was there,
Yes,
yes.
whether that
But it
was,
was-
whether it
yeah.
was him or somebody
Right,
else.
it was
somebody-
vacant.
Okay,
But the position was there. It was vacant at the end of 22, I believe. It went vacant and we didn't fill it. So then we're taking,
Yeah, but I'm trying to, again, I look at the last actual and the 25 budget, and it's a 26% increase in salaries. The subtotal.
We had a lot of,
So I'm trying to figure out,
Why?
I thought the animal control might be part of it.
no, I think the main driver of this is, and this is why it's tough to compare, especially on salaries, actuals to budgets, because on salaries, if we have a position, we have to budget for that position where we think it's gonna be graded for 100% of the time of the year. But I think what you're seeing in the 23 is we had many vacant
Vacancies.
positions at that time, including the operations manager,
right.
including at least a couple of staff people. And so if
Okay,
you just
I get
don't
it.
pay them, you know, the actuals aren't gonna compare to the budget.
I get
Yeah,
it.
you had a couple of positions that were open for over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
didn't you?
yeah,
Heavy
2
equipment
years,
operators,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or the last year you talked.
All right, I'll just go with it. So then when I look at that temporary and overtime, you're budgeting flat from the budget of 24.
Mhm.
So
Why is that? No change?
No change in the temporary or the.
say excellent management. But I assume.
How you doing in the overtime budgets now? Looks like the last time you hit 46, you're budgeting 41.
41.
Yeah, I don't have like my actuals for salaries in front of me, but I know that we're in good shape
In total
in
overtime
total overtime.
and temporary seasonal too?
Yeah.
You have a hard time filling those roles? The seasonal
Um,
one?
I think this year could be tough, but in the past, we've had the same people coming back.
Oh, yeah.
But this year might be a little challenging. But we're being fully staffed in full time, I think, we'll be in good shape.
On the overtime, John, you might recall a couple years ago, the committee might recall. We increased that, the idea that we had a lot of projects to do. I don't know that we were ever really able to do a lot of that because we ended up being short-staffed. But the idea was utilizing even our own guys on overtime was a less expensive way to approach some of the maintenance and repairs we needed to
Than
do as
hiring
opposed
out.
to contracting it out.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if you could speak to where we stand on that effort, or, you know, is that something we're able to do going forward, or?
Well, going forward, yeah, and that was one of the questions about, the operations, where we see the department in the future, and one of the things is some of the issues coming up in the future is our stormwater system. So a lot of these projects this year that I want to tackle is going to be geared towards the stormwater and doing those projects. And a lot of those will be on overtime.
So that's like storm drain.
Like storm drains,
cleaning
yeah,
and-
catch basins, rebuilds and installation.
You do your own engineering for all that?
Some of them, we'll do it in-house.
Okay.
Some we'll have environmental partners or somebody design. It is depending on what they are.
Is the other thing that eats into this as well is snow removal? If you get a lot of snow, is this the account that takes a big hit? The overtime, I'm saying.
The overtime, it's
I know.
separate in the snow and ice budget. but,
Oh, that's right.
It's a
Mary
different
brought that
budget.
up.
Typically, it hasn't been too bad the past couple of years.
So it-
I don't know where we stand with our storm last week. But I know where we were right up to it and we're in good shape. I have that
Okay.
in my, when we get into snow and ice or.
The 84,000 stone and ice basically covers, just a couple of minor incidents where you do sanding and salting, perhaps, maybe not a lot of plowing, and one bigger plow event. Really doesn't cover all that many storms, but there is a peculiarity with, state law that once you appropriate money for snow and ice, you're required to maintain that level of appropriation.
Hmm.
So, it's not uncommon, because why would you, budget a lot of money if that were the case? The other part under state law is you're allowed to deficit spend that
Right,
account.
right.
And so that's the approach we take. We provide a, nominal amount to cover, a nominal winter, I guess. And then if you have big events, we'll go into deficit, provide the notification to the select board, and then provide funding at town meeting out of free cash usually to cover it. Or
Well, I think
transferring,
in the past, we've taken it out of the transfer.
or we transfer it, we can do the reserve fund.
The
and-
reserve
Yeah.
from the 200,000 that we have.
So before last year's storm, we were at about 7,000 in overtime and out of the 25,000 that's in that account. Obviously after last week,
Mhm.
I don't think we'll be over yet, but
Do you have trouble finding drivers for snowplow drivers?
because we're fully staffed in DPW this year, we didn't hire any outside guy.
Good,
So
okay,
that,
because that's always been a problem trying to get people.
yeah, they did well last week. It worked out good with a full staff, so.
Any questions from the Zoomers?
Yes,
Roy?
Mary,
Roy?
question about general maintenance expense. In fiscal year 23, which is the actual, it was 120,000.
Right,
We're budgeting for FY 25, 173,800. What are some of the reasons for the increase there?
we're on, just for everybody's sake, we're on page 110. Do you want my?
I have,
Oh, you have it? Okay.
for general we're on
General maintenance
yeah.
expense.
General maintenance expense.
And look at page 116.
Yeah, 115, 116.
It's really the other, sorry, John, but
No, go ahead.
it's the other charges we've historically provided for, drainage, site improvement and roadway funds. Above and beyond chapter 90 money that we get from the state. We haven't had to utilize those amounts. Because of all the road work going on with the water project. So we've been incorporating all the road work stuff as part of the water project, and that's paying for those costs. But we've been maintaining it on the anticipation that that water project will be wrapping up and we'll be going back to having to do this within the operating budget. But that's where you'll see a significant savings to budget to actual.
All right, so while you're on page 116, do you expect to do those road improvements in fiscal year 25?
Well, I'm not sure. John can speak to what he has planned, but I would anticipate most of what we have planned is covered still by the water project for this one more year.
Yep.
We'll be wrapping up the water project next
Spring.
spring, and then we'll be back on our own.
It's gonna be shocking.
Yeah, so my plan after the water project was done, obviously, we'll have some roads that didn't get done at the beginning of the water project. We'll look at those roads and evaluate them and possibly use chapter 90 funds to resurface the roads that didn't get touched earlier on in the project, if there's no money left
Mhm.
from the water project.
Which is not gonna happen.
Well, I know our bids came in, I know our bids came in lower. And we do
Yeah.
have some money left over, so I'm hoping that that's enough to do the job.
Yeah, as we hit the home stretch of the water project, that's one of the updates we get periodically is the unencumbered versus what was been appropriated.
Mhm.
And that's what we're going, whatever that amount is, and it keeps going down as other things happen, but that's what we're keeping an eye on to see, are we gonna have enough money to go back and do all these phase one roads? But this would provide, if it wasn't enough or for the future, once that's all done, this budget provides for that ongoing stuff. It's supplement to chapter 90.
And the most inexpensive way of doing it is how we've been doing it, which is to include some road resurfacing in each contract. That while they're here, they're mobilized. If John has to call someone back or sign a contract to do roads later,
Mhm.
it'll be more expensive.
yeah.
So we're trying to get as many roads done while the water
Is in the process.
contract is still here.
But I know in the original contracts didn't have any, that wasn't part of the.
Right, and we've built them
agreement.
in, so all of phase two has had them built in,
Mhm.
and then they went back this year and did a lot of the private roads in phase one, so we need to do the public roads in phase one, and then the rest of the
Mhm.
phase two roads.
May I ask a second question?
Sure.
Okay, on waste collection and sanitation. In FY 23, the actual was 630,000.
What page are you on, Roy?
120.
Page 10,
Sorry?
page 110.
One,
That doesn't sound right.
no.
10?
110 is the, 110 is the top level.
Oh, okay. I got
And then you got the
yeah,
detail.
I
for
got the
that.
detail.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
On page 110,
Right,
the FY 23 actual was 630,000.
right.
And going into fiscal years 25, you've got 674,000. Is 674 sufficient?
Yes, from our calculations for the next fiscal year going into 25, we did a modest increase based on what we see coming down the road. At the end of fiscal year 25, our contract with CMAS will be up and we'll have to look at that again. But as of right now, our increases are in line with our expenses.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things we did in this budget, and John was helpful in deriving these amounts, and you'll notice on page 121, under, first line, waste tipping fee. Knowing that we're gonna have to renegotiate this contract in the following fiscal year, I wanted a little bit better handle on, what we're talking about, what's the order of magnitude. These tipping fees and hauling fees, a lot of times are based on tonnage, right? So, what I wanted to make sure that we had was a solid, I know John can't tell me exactly what the tonnage is gonna be in any given year, but we gotta pick a baseline and we gotta go with it. So this would be an area that, and I think I came back to you a year, maybe 2 years ago, where we did overspend. And if you look at the 23 actual to the 23 budget, it was overspent in this.
Mhm.
And that was a reserve fund transfer or a year-end transfer to cover it. But that was the year where we started getting gas charges on the hauling, and I think we had a
Hmm.
surprise increase on
The gas got so
disposal.
expensive.
And so this is an area of risk for us within our overall budget, because we're talking some big dollars here. But the key thing that John and I talked about was the tipping fee, disposal, CMAS Covanta line item is based on 3,250 tons and at an average cost per ton. And so if we are over or short, wherever we end up landing at the end of a fiscal year, that's gonna be my baseline. And if it comes to me and you say, well, we're short, $100,000. Well, what's the tonnage and what was our rate? And, we can calculate that difference from our baseline. And, that's something that he can monitor as he goes through the year. How am I doing to my budgeted tons? Because it's not always about the dollars, because the price potentially can fluctuate. But if you
Mhm.
know your tonnage and you know the average cost that you've budgeted per ton, you can say, based on that, how are you doing? And a big thing that, we can't control home renovations, for example. Or how many people visit Eastham and stay at a short-term rental. So it's not uncommon, especially when you're doing a lot of renovations, that you got a lot of extra C&D, and that builds up the tonnage.
We don't
But
pass
that's
that
revenue
on,
adjust-
We charge fees,
Yeah,
charge fees,
but
right?
the fees don't reduce the budgets. They just become general revenue of the town. And we use that as part of as our revenue sources and balancing the budget. Remember, we got property tax,
Mhm.
local receipts, and state receipts
different revenues.
as part of our local receipts.
Do you, but not based on that, but because of that comment, do you feel that we're charging enough for all of this activity?
Yeah, well, I'll let John speak to it, but he just did
You
a
just
fee
raised-
So
proposal.
We just did a fee proposal and we went up on our sticker fees
Mhm.
and our rates for the certain categories such as electronics, tires,
Refrigerator.
refrigerators, and basically all that, those extra fees that we get charged, we went up on those. So
When does that go into effect?
that'll be in FY 25, correct?
July
Oh,
1.
So July 1st. Roy, do you have any other?
Yeah,
Question.
just, the hazardous waste removal on page 121. We've got 48,000 budgeted. And I look at fiscal year 23 actual. And that's at 46,000. Do we have enough money there for hazardous waste removal?
Yeah, that's a line that, we get billed by the county for this and it, speaking to them, they didn't see it going up much more than that. There was a lot of hazardous waste collected throughout the past 2 years due to COVID. A lot of people
Mm.
were cleaning out and they saw a rise across the county. With the hazardous waste collection days.
Mhm.
I think
Okay.
we're all right there.
The other part of that
Alright.
is, a lot of that budget has to do with our own hazardous waste collection day,
Yeah.
which we can control. You know, if we're gonna be short, we can scale back a little bit of some of what we do there as well.
We share that with Orleans, don't we? I
It's a
mean,
countywide program.
yeah.
Each town does their own day, though.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying that if I can take stuff to Orleans when they have their day. Roy, any other?
You can actually control the hazardous waste material that comes in on that day that the free day you're talking about when people bring things in?
No, I don't think we can control.
We just estimated.
Yeah.
But if we couldn't, if we were totally over and we couldn't fund it, we probably would just go to one day that year. Rather than, we usually do 2 days here. And then
Okay.
we'll do 2 days. So, I mean, if we couldn't fund it, if we were that far over, then we should think about not having 2 events that year. But, I think we'll be all right.
Okay.
But am I reading this right on the waste tipping fee? CMAS, I know they are, Scovante, the second source, the second.
CMAT, it's
It's one
Covanta,
company.
yeah, it's one.
So why are there 2 tipping fees? What's the 81 and the 107?
The 80, so those are the averages Rich was talking about. It's looking like it could possibly go up to 107. So those are, Rich kind of
Took an average?
took an average.
Well,
So you took 2 averages.
why are there 2 averages?
That's the deal.
I kind of forget now, was the 81 a gas fee or?
I think 81 is. Hold on a sec. 81. 107. Gave herself a buffer there and actually, did find out this company we've been bringing in, it was going up a little bit, going up to 185, I think. So, but we're shopping around, there are better prices, but that gives us a good buffer between them.
One of the things, the reason it would be higher is, it ought not be a one-off. So You know, if we pay 175, we're not charging 175 because there's other costs associated with us having to run this transfer station, namely the people and their benefits.
Mhm.
So, what this maintained when we did this calculation, and I just verified it, is about a 25% markup on the direct cost, on the disposal cost. So that's about where we want to be, 25-30% markup at least.
Steve, you had your hand up
Oh, yeah.
earlier.
Yeah, as far as the rubbish, I gotta assume there's a correlation between the revenue versus the expense, so one goes up, the other one goes up, right?
We're hoping.
Well, it
Yeah.
does, Steve, and that was my comment, a year, I think it was 2 years ago. We were short in the budget on the appropriation on the expense. And that was exactly my comment to the finance committee is to fund it out of the reserve fund because the revenue also came in. You can't add revenue to budgets. You're not allowed
Right.
to do that.
Right.
But the actual revenue was in our general fund and it actually closed out and became free cash.
Yeah.
So, using other unspent appropriations to cover it, it was kind of a wash because the revenue came in to cover it. Just, you can't add it to your budget,
Okay.
Town meeting can only add to the budgets.
Back on the salaries, just one other question on the new position on the shellfish constable. Did we used to have a shellfish constable or is this a brand new position? And if it is a new position, is there a new program that's being set up for it, or is it just being duties that were being performed by other personnel?
It's an existing position.
It's an existing position.
Yep.
Oh, so we just didn't have anybody last year.
We didn't have anyone for a little bit, just a tiny bit. We had a natural resource officer that was acting as the shellfish constable, which is how we used to do it. We used to have,
Okay, all right.
Well, no, let me explain that a little bit. Jackie's correct. Nicole Payne was a natural resource officer. She left and was replaced by Stephanie, who took on her responsibilities. And I got this right, John? Stephanie also did the ACO work.
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
That got us through a short period, but that was just a stopgap to help us out with the fact that the police couldn't do the ACO stuff anymore. But we knew that the operations manager, due to our collective bargaining negotiations, was being dropped out of the position and being replaced by a line person. So the shellfish constable used to be Nicole's, so it is a little convoluted, but Stephanie now does the ACI, ACO, and the new position is the harbor master, which was Nicole's old position. So there's a little bit of shuffling.
No, we've had the harbor master and we had the shellfish constable
We've always had the shellfish constable.
and the harbor master.
All right.
To answer your question, we've always had a shellfish constable,
So what does ACO stand for, please?
animal control
Or
officer.
Animal Control Officer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now-
That's the most recent ad.
I think the bottom line is the operations manager position dropped off and we added a staff position.
So seems like operations manager is kind of an important position. How does it just drop off?
We've got foreman.
We have foreman, qualified foreman. So at this time, we thought, we felt the need for that position to go somewhere else in the department, which it ended up funding the new shellfish constable / ACO. However you want
Yeah,
to say
I
And-
see how the salary is transferred, but.
And
the
I think
responsibility-
traditionally, we have been short-staffed with the boots on the ground over at the DPW and transfer station. And so we made a decision to move that money that I think we all agree with you is not a good long-term decision. Like, we're going to have to figure out how to get that second level of staff at some point.
The other thing I would add is also the facilities foreman didn't exist previously. And so now we've got supervision in each division by a foreman, whereas previously the operations manager did some of that supervision
Mhm.
that didn't exist otherwise.
That's true too, yeah.
So each division has a foreman heading it up, supervising it. And to Jackie's point, and probably John's, is, as we move forward with wastewater, I think that's our opportunity to look, what do we need to do at that higher level position, whether it's somebody that's an engineer or, a wastewater superintendent, that type of thing.
How long did you have it, the operations manager? Oh, is that,
That was before me,
oh,
so
so it's
It
been there
was
for,
fairly new.
Yeah,
No,
I
no,
thought
no.
it
It used to be the assistant DPW director. And then we literally downgraded the position to operations because the candidates that we had filling the positions were not really at the level of assistant. They were more at a sort of an enhanced foreman level. So that's how operations manager during Silvio, when Silvio Janelle was here, that
okay,
got
so you
created.
didn't, you still had a body there, they were operating. at
Exactly.
a
We
different
just
level
called
than the
the-
skill level,
that body a different name.
okay. So you really have, Peter's point, eliminated a role that was contributing at some level. that you're Probably
Exactly.
gonna come back for at some
Yes.
point.
absolutely.
Makes sense, like you said, wait until after the wastewater is.
Yeah.
Cause you may restructure other things at that.
Yeah.
I think Steve still.
Steve,
All set.
anybody else on the Zooming group there?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. I attended a regional transit meeting probably late last spring. And I was told, or the group was told, that they were going to be building some bus shelters in Eastham, one over near the Superette and one up near the Town Center Plaza area. Do you know anything about that?
I don't, I haven't heard that.
Oh,
Kayla's, we're managing that
oh, okay.
administration.
Do you have it? Because I asked about the status and I asked about paying for it and they said that they were going to be doing it soon and that they had the.
But
They just
there's
haven't
a
done
DOT issue, so it has to go through permitting for the right of way for the DOT up near Town Center Plaza. And they're trying to figure out a way to get a so and then across the street, Kayla had basically gotten the CCRTA in contact with the private property owner, because that's private property, it's
Mhm.
not ours. So
Right,
it's
the super-
underway. It's just, I don't know where it is exactly in the,
Okay,
Sounds like a few years out.
well, it shouldn't be, but I think, with our master plan kind of up in the air too, like, I mean, we probably aren't going to change that bus stop location, but
okay. I have another question. Is there a state or a local requirement that when you have a business, you shovel the sidewalks in front of that business?
I don't know about
I
that.
don't know.
that's a
I
requirement.
think that's usually a
An insurance issue.
bylaw thing too.
The reason I'm asking, I get my mail at the Northeast Ham Post Office, and I went there the other day, yesterday, and which is a week since the storm. And in front of Ben and Jerry's, it was pure ice. And you've got elderly folks living in town here, going there to get their mail, and I thought that it was the responsibility of the business to shovel in front of their businesses when we had storms like that. I just was
Was it
asking.
adjacent to the highway or was it in the plaza itself, the parking lot and the sidewalks around
It
the
was a
building?
sidewalk right in front of Ben and Jerry's,
Right, adjacent to the building or adjacent to Route
adjacent to,
6?
adjacent to the building.
Oh, that's all
On
private
Brack-
property.
private
Oh, I know it is, but isn't there a requirement that the,
No, I think John's right. If we
Public
have a,
sidewalk. There's a
it-
requirement,
it's a public sidewalk.
cities and stuff for public sidewalk, but that's not a public sidewalk. Because it's a private,
It's a private
And-
business.
yeah, but the whole facility is a private business.
Well, it's the whole area there, all the buildings there, I guess they're owned by somebody. I don't know who owns it
So
exactly.
it's not a public sidewalk.
Oh.
Compared to,
Oh.
because I think most of the bylaws are about who has, would be responsibility for clearing a public sidewalk. owned by the
That's
public.
pretty public.
No, owned by
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
like if you're in Boston, the city owns the sidewalk.
Mm.
So the city can
Oh, I
require
see.
you to
Okay.
go out
City,
and
yeah,
clean it.
exactly,
Oh, okay.
exactly.
Right.
But in this case, I mean, there's not a lot of sidewalks in Eastham, so it's probably never been, a thing. It's probably never been brought up. that-
We ask every year and they-
Okay.
But in that
For
case,
one section.
But
of
in that
sidewalk.
case, it's entirely private though. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody, what, if a business decides not to plow their parking lot.
So if somebody falls, it's the responsibility of Ben and Jerry's owner.
Yep.
It's just an issue that the location is not, it's not good for people trying to get their mail. Do you, I have some issues regarding the roads that go across bike paths. Do you go out and check to see whether there's good visibility at those locations to see whether there can be some cleaning up of the bushes and shrubs so people can see people coming and going on those bike paths? Is there?
We don't typically, I mean, we keep the sides of the roads as clear as we can. We don't. Usually it's, what's a DCR?
Yeah, and the
that-
police department does it too. They'll look and call John.
They're called,
Yeah,
I mean, we're always out, looking for at all them areas, any street crossings, anything. But if there's something particular, typically the DCR takes care of,
Mhm.
all those entrances to the trail. I mean, they clear around all their signs and
because there are a number of places in town that you cannot see. Some people
think that. I mean, but we do have, Jackie's point, the police do patrol.
Mhm.
And, so maybe that's a good point. We could just communicate to Adam and say, maybe if you pay a little bit more attention, if you can give some referrals. Cause John's shop is more, if he sees something, I'm sure he would fix it,
Oh, yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's more responsive to requests.
Mhm,
They don't really have the staff be out driving around to figure out what they might be
Mhm.
doing next week type of thing. So,
And I have another question. I know you're aware that the large number of folks that live in town here are older folks, and the streets here are very narrow and there's no street lights to speak of. And on the road that I live on, finally, after umpteen years, white lines were put on the sides of the roads. And that was really helpful when you're driving at night. Are there many roads that don't have those white lines? What, is there a reason why, or is there a plan to put white lines? And
at this time, there's no plans to put white lines. We need to survey the roads and see if they're wide enough. If the roads are wide enough, we will start putting them. It is a safety issue.
Mhm.
And if the road is wide enough, we will. Definitely. So
is it done every so often? I
we
mean, is there?
usually try to get the line painting crews out here once a
Once a
year
year.
Mhm.
to touch up the roads. So they won't add white line until, we would tell them if there was a specific road. With the water project and the roads being resurfaced,
Mhm.
they've been doing the lines. And it's working out well
Mhm.
with being able to add the white line.
No, I've just found that as a result of the various meetings that I attend, that then it's dark when I'm going home, and the roads are very poorly lit. I mean, they're not lit at all, most of them. And if I didn't have those white lines, because of the trees and everything else, and I'm just assuming everybody else is having the same problem. So it's helpful to have those lines up there.
Yeah,
or on there.
absolutely.
Is there
I agree with-
criteria? Is there criteria for adding white lines to a road? It depend on the width of the
It's-
road, the
it's-
speed limit on the road?
It's width.
It's width?
Yeah.
Okay, not the speed.
How wide's the travel lane have to be? 14? No.
11.
Maybe 117, 117. You just taking, I just carried along.
Yeah, it's actually, within the whole building, yeah. It just jumped up a lot there, 45. Is there something we're doing here that, going forward, is that catch up on the budget? No, it's just the services that have gone up and that line, so that's repairing.
But the
From
pl-
11
plumbing-
grand to 16 grand. Yeah.
Plumbing and so forth?
Yeah, that's just the service. Now that we have a building and grounds, coordinator.
Yep.
He's out there, you know,
Spending money.
spending money, yeah, but. Exactly.
Well, he is spending money.
But it's,
There are things that need to be fixed
Mhm.
and things that we otherwise would have
Numbers
been.
aren't cheap.
Well, you know, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Otherwise,
So
with
we've
the-
hired somebody who's now in the role
And
and
it's-
go ahead.
This is
there's
the budget
things-
they spend out of. The alternative would have been hiring out all these things.
Mm.
You know, so, and I know this is plumbing and electrical, but just for example, the stairs that, you know, if you go out here on the stairs on the annex building.
Mhm.
Or stairs, the ramp, I should say,
He's building.
100% building that himself,
Okay,
as opposed to hiring someone to come in.
and
God
before we
knows.
would have contracted out something like
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
And
so
it-
it's the,
So it's a mix of things.
yeah, it's a mix. It's the purchase of materials and,
materials have all gone up. We all know
yeah,
that.
it's relative.
Yeah. And then, the second question, the vehicles, that you've got, you know, a lot of the one-offs, you know, what condition are they in? What's your status relative to the condition of the vehicles and your capital plan?
So the capital plan, the vehicle replacement program that Eastham has is great. So we updated a vehicle every year with the pickup trucks. And then as far as the capital plan, that's where we purchase the bigger trucks off of the plow equipment. And I think, so far, we're in good shape. We have a truck on there for next year. And yeah,
Okay, you're in good shape.
we're in good shape there as far as.
I think
vehicle
we got
replacement.
and they're both funded from chapter 90 in the excavator too, right?
The bigger capital
dump.
stuff was, yeah, the truck was chapter 90 and again, the smaller trucks were.
Small truck,
funded.
the pickups, those are the ones that
That's
you've
what
got on a
we're replacing
revolving
plan.
plan every 5 years or whatever the number is, right? You
Yeah.
probably use them a
Based
little
on
bit more.
use, based on use.
Yeah, but the truck you're talking about, it must be, it was a big dump truck or
Yeah,
something?
the larger trucks
Okay,
were funded with.
your
chapter.
front end loaders and things like that, you're in good shape.
Yep.
Okay, good, thanks.
I have another question on the, you started with the compost, with folks dropping off their compost at the
The waste.
food waste,
Yep.
right? I was just wondering how that was going and whether there was any discussion of including more commercial type of food waste. Right now, it's just individual. And whether you're, are you, I don't know where it goes and how much it's costing to provide that.
So that on a commercial level, the county's looking at that as they're looking at joint base for a site for commercial. We're not looking at doing anything in Eastham right now. And then as far as what's getting picked up now, the residential food waste program's going great. This past year, we paid for it out of the recycling grant we get. We'll continue that through this coming fiscal year and then probably look at, adding it as an operating fund for the transfer
How
station.
much is the grant and what's it costing right now?
So grant money, we have $20,000 in our.
That's revolving.
So far this year, we've spent $2,000 on a company called Black Earth that comes and digs it up and brings it to Plymouth.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I work for the DPW and the water.
I'm sorry, your name is,
They know.
oh, okay, I know, you're on the water.
Sorry.
Mary, the commercial, that's been an issue on Cape Cod for a long time. And Town of Bourne was looking to site an anaerobic digester at their transfer station. They got a regional transfer station. They passed on that. Yarmouth looked into it, I involved in that whole RFP project. And that had a lot of promise, but it's very, very expensive. I mean, tens of millions of dollars to get anything of size that's gonna generate enough electricity to justify the food stock going into it. So I think that kind of died on the vine too.
Hmm.
So I've been interested in perhaps doing something here since we do have a regional transfer station. But it's one of those things that requires a lot of time and effort to get it off the ground. And basically you'd be looking for a private investor to come in to provide and set up the anaerobic digester.
Hmm.
And the analysis they need to do is that they've got enough food stock to feed it.
To make it worthwhile.
And then from that, they generate electricity.
Mhm.
And they just give you a little cut of whatever it is they're getting. But it's a significant investment for someone to do.
I mean, it probably wouldn't make sense for a small town like.
No, it made a lot of sense in
but it would
Yarmouth
be more
because
from a regional perspective.
in Yarmouth, for example, right off exit 8, we called it the Cape Cod Energy Park, had a great name and everything. We were gonna do solar panels, we were gonna do this anaerobic digester, but that's because we had a septic treatment plant right on site.
Hmm.
And also, which is with all the machinery and gears, you had a lot of high energy utilization. And so it made a lot of sense for us to have a electric generating facility like an anaerobic digester on site,
Mhm.
send it right over to the septic plant and basically buy the electricity from the developer that did the anaerobic digester. You know, we don't have that here, so
Yeah.
Rich,
Not
will
a-
that change though when we do wastewater? Any chance?
perhaps.
Okay, the numbers might look different.
Mhm.
Interesting. I got one last question. It has to do with the streetlights. One time we were talking about maybe buying the streetlights from Eversource or something in order to improve the internet in my particular own backyard.
And it's in the works,
Is
actually.
it still looking at
And
that?
I just got an email today. We guess we got the data from Eversource that can effectuate us to come up with the purchase and sale agreement. But the select board voted to buy them out,
Yeah.
and Cape Light Compact, a consultant for them, is kind of heading up that effort.
So it's moving
And
forward.
that's moved. So basically, we just got to get the information from Eversource, and then there needs to be an agreement, usually for $1 or $100 or whatever, to buy
Okay.
it from them, and then we own them. And then you
Right.
get a service contractor with a provider through the Cape Light Compact to provide service to the lights.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. So then the service contractor would maintain those lights?
Yeah,
not-
and
Mhm.
not
and
the
we would
DPW.
also probably at that time through Cape Light Compact again, probably replace all the streetlights at no
Mhm.
cost to I forget what they call them, but LED type things,
LED.
Yeah.
And they come with the,
LED.
ready with internet capable nodes
Okay, relays.
so that
Yeah.
you can manage streetlights remotely, all that good stuff.
And you think that'll happen in 25, Rich, or
Oh, yeah, yeah.
you do?
I don't, the internet capability stuff might not, but
Yeah.
the new lights hopefully would be happening.
We don't have very many streetlights in town.
No,
No, but start somewhere.
apparently we're gonna add more white lines, white lines and streetlights.
Any other questions from the Zoom folk?
No,
Any other questions from the folks here on the,
Just one
Committee.
last question
Go
on
ahead,
the,
Tom.
the
Peter?
waste collection and disposal detail uniform rentals. Do I notice
What page are you on?
the staff, page 122? At the transfer station, are there uniforms?
Yep.
See them wearing t-shirts, but
What's that? They do have pants.
Oh, they do?
They,
Okay.
yeah, they do get pants and long sleeve shirts with the logos and
good.
every department has that.
Do you get many complaints about the fact that you're closed, at least right now, 2 days a week and? I
I
was-
haven't. I
because-
don't know if administration has, but we haven't at all.
We've been closed 2 days a week for a long time in the winter.
I know.
Like we've never been open 7 days a week.
I was just wondering whether, because you're open, I mean, you're closed only one day in the summer, that's on
Mm.
Friday.
Mhm.
And I was just wondering if you'd gotten any complaints.
No, everyone's adjusted really well to it.
Sort of well.
Sticking
Every
with it.
time I pull in there on the wrong day, I don't complain. I just go,
Oh, I forgot.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
But it's good to keep on because there's no cell phone service.
That's right.
Strategic plan. White lines before streetlights.
okay, any other comments, questions, et cetera?
Thanks very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much, John, for for joining
you,
us
John.
today.
Thank you.
I think John's also gonna talk about the water. With Kim's help.
Okay. We can do
You're gonna stay for the water?
Somebody's gotta do it.
Somebody's got.
I thought you were doing it.
So what's?
So water is, if you're with your binders, 169.
Kim, do you want to trade seats with me?
169 to 175.
Someone?
I mean, I guess I will,
Up
joke a
now
little
he's
bit
gonna
with
do
John.
it.
I guess I will
Yeah.
just kick it off. Water is another area that's a area of risk for us within the budget. It's a growing operation as we hit the completion and we are adding more accounts all the time, which Kim could speak to. And we do have a lot of contracts have expired or expiring, which we feel are going to come, the renewals are gonna come in quite a bit higher. So what you see here on the budget for on page 170 of 501,000 is a bit of increase over the prior year, but that's because of the anticipated contract, especially the operations contract increase. It might not be sufficient. So we'll have to deal with that when we get to that and when we have that known information. But the offset to this is revenue, right? And so the select board just did increase water rates, which had never been increased since the inception. And so we think the revenue will be there to fund the operation, whatever the need is.
When do the new rates take
Yeah,
effect?
that's what I was just gonna
July
ask.
1.
July 1 of this
too.
year? And then the estimate I think that you provided was like, that was for scenario 3, was gonna generate revenue of
800,000.
I was gonna say 800,000, so.
So roughly it comes, just for talking purposes, roughly $600,000 operating budget and 200,000 for the first time ever. We're contemplating in that rate, generating money that will be put into a capital reserve for the ongoing maintenance.
It's like painting a tower or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Or
Just basic maintenance.
pump breaks,
Okay.
that sort of thing.
Okay.
So that's the rough breakdown of the rate
Okay.
increase.
So so I heard the 800, so that's the difference. The other 200 is going into capital improvement.
But we'll see how that,
Well, that's what I wanted to know about.
so it all goes into the water enterprise fund and it gets maintained in a retained earnings of that fund.
Right.
So it doesn't go to the general fund. It can't really be used for anything outside of the water. And so that's why I'm not particularly worried about the operations. I mean, I am, but if it's more than what we provided for here, the enterprise funds has it within the retained earnings to cover that shortfall. And that will cause us to rethink, all right, we thought we had 200,000 for capital, and if we only end up having 150, then does that change our, that we have the next year to figure that out.
Do we think over the long term that water and wastewater will come together in a single rate like other towns or? Yeah, and maybe that's too far ahead.
Yeah, that's way.
But right now they're gonna be treated as separate, at least for the
That-
foreseeable future, and then.
Well, we'll
Yeah.
see what the requirements are. I've had this argument over years with lots of folks at the state. If I had my way, I prefer to see a single, it requires a vote or a modification either way, but lots of towns have a sewer enterprise fund and a water enterprise fund. In our circumstance, especially here on the Cape, what we're really worried about, in my opinion, is water quality.
Mhm.
And so, I coined the term Water Resources Enterprise Fund. So hopefully most of the towns on the Cape will be doing a water resources enterprise. There's a lot of old towns that have existing water, so they're not gonna change, but Yarmouth, Dennis, all the towns out this way, to the extent they're doing new enterprise funds, that hopefully that's a term we hear more of. And you would still rate each utility separately.
Mhm.
So you're still gonna have a sewer rate, you're still gonna have a water rate, but they end up in the same spot financially. And so you have the ability, not necessarily to subsidize one over the other, but to supplement one over the other and have some flexibility.
That's what I mean.
So you're saying the maintenance of either one would be covered depending upon what the needs were?
Right, because the end goal is clean water.
And they're both supposed to be sustaining, right? So self-sustaining. So the rate should cover both
Well,
waste and water, right?
that's discussion for for
Yeah,
another time.
that's-
Yeah, because
Yeah, that's my
Um,
question.
We
you
haven't
know,
even designed the system yet, so it's hard.
That's the
to-
intention.
that's the intention of a
Objective.
enterprise fund, is to recover costs, but
Yeah.
whether you can practically do that, I think remains to be seen for all these towns on Cape Cod that are putting in sewer systems for the first time.
Yeah.
It's always been. Sounds like a lot for a capital plan to put in a wastewater treatment plant, and it is. But, 100 million divided by 30 years is, manageable debt service.
Right.
But and that goes away at the end. But what never goes away is the operating cost. And
Right.
what's it gonna cost them to staff these things and run them and treat them? And so, is that reasonably expected that 400, 500 users could support all that on their own?
Okay.
It's
That's the
the,
question.
it's the question.
Yeah, that's the question. It's the user, how fast we can attract users to both
Right.
systems, right?
And why we're trying to include the Northeastern Business District in the system.
We can't get growth in the town without that though, right?
We can't, but we need the larger users like the restaurants and the commercial businesses.
Right, right. Is that still voluntary? For that?
We haven't
haven't
even
decided.
designed it, so we haven't done any regulations yet.
That's fair.
But
you
they
look at-
want it, at least they want it.
So.
We know
you're
they
getting the
want
pull
it,
From them. So
yes.
you expect if you build it, they will come. anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
And that was definitely the story in Yarmouth, and
Yeah.
I don't know how often you frequent Yarmouth, but Route 28 in Yarmouth is nearly all commercial.
Mhm.
And so I surveyed all individually, went and talked to every single one of those people. And to a T, I mean, the biggest one was a Cove at the West Yarmouth, that was on the highest line. Spent millions of dollars over years on-site septic. And the thing was always breaking, and he always had the people come.
The
It's
maintenance
terrible.
is
He's like,
incredible.
he contributing, even if I had charged him a betterment, was gonna be cheaper for them to hook up to a town system than have their own on-site.
Well, at least it's not a
And-
push, it's a pull is what you're saying.
And they could then develop their site.
Yeah.
So it was a win-win for everybody.
So yeah, it is, but it is getting the flow numbers. Like Orleans, when they started their system, they started small, but theirs is gonna build out larger, like they have, 8 stages, 8
Okay.
phases. But in the beginning, they had to accept wastewater from outside in order to get that flow so that it made sense. First of all, so that the treatment system would work.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right, you need. yeah.
And secondly, for the finances of it.
And they had mandatory hookups in the phase. the first
They had
phase
mandatory hookups.
Downtown.
Downtown for commercial.
How-
Doesn't sound like that would be a problem here, right?
Mm-mm.
But if you get the commercial, does the commercial represent 50% of what you think the usage would be, or do we know?
We don't know
We don't
yet.
know. Okay.
Yeah, and it depends, like we're trying to attract, obviously, the biggest user that we would like to have. Get the visitor center bathrooms, that's the gold standard.
Liquid gold.
Nothing better than visitor
4 million
bathrooms.
visitors a year. 4 million visitors a year. And if you, like, we go
Didn't expect you to leave with that
What sort of
If you-
calculation do you want now?
walk, I mean, a lot of people walk around that trail, the bathrooms are constantly busy, even in the winter. You
Well,
know, people will
people-
park there and
I
go
was
to the
gonna say, people
bathroom.
use them even though they're not even going anywhere. They just,
Exactly.
because they've been traveling and that's one of the first
Yes.
places.
So they have a huge flow, and so we want that flow. And they want us to have it because they have, again, the same O and M.
Okay, so.
Issues.
You don't expect a problem from them?
No, we're not, no.
Okay.
But we're trying to, right now, that's what the engineers are trying to do, is calculate, okay, where can we get the biggest flow that's gonna help us solve the problem the fastest, right?
Right, sure. And you've always been looking at the east side of Route 6, right? All the.
Exactly, yeah.
Between Town Hall and Wellfleet, right?
Yep.
And it's still talking about, well, all right, we don't want to turn this into. Okay,
we're-
I'll help you design it
Sorry.
later.
How many households are on water lines that could hook up and have not? Do we know that?
Yeah, we know.
We have 2,200 people connected right now.
2,200 right now.
Right, so that's 40% of those who can connect
Ooh.
have connected.
That's not good. To me, that's not good.
It's a great number, Mary. It's a fantastic number. It is.
40% after all this time?
Yes, because the system goes to every single parcel, right?
Yeah,
And there are so many parcels that have no water
Oh.
quality issues or don't perceive that they have water quality issues, that I think getting to 40% is huge. It's a great number for us.
But one of the things that we're contemplating, and this is a next year's discussion, but it's already kind of on the table and in the thought process. If we're starting to collect through our water rate,
mhm.
money to go to capital replacement. If you can connect and you're not, I mean, if you're just collecting money to pay for operations and you're connected, great, you're paying for the operation. If you're not connected, you're not paying for the operation. That makes sense. But now we're trying to put money aside for infrastructure
Mhm.
capital replacement, of which we've all paid in through our tax rate. So if at this point, if you're not connected,
Are they going to be
and you could
charged?
be,
Yeah.
you're kind of getting a free ride on that capital
Right.
piece. And so what we might institute next year, so to incentivize people to connect
Now.
and to recover the money that people are avoiding by not connecting. Perhaps in the future, there'll be either a water connection or a system development fee of, $750 or $1,000, whereas right now it's free.
So how much are you contemplating charging somebody that doesn't hook up that could hook up?
Well, that's what we're gonna have to look at when,
Oh, okay.
but, if I ran the numbers, I forget what they are now, but just for sake of, if the total water rate that you're paying in over the course of a year and $100 of it would have gone to capital, is 5 year, is a $500 system development fee, charging to recover all the time for the time that you weren't contributing, that type of thing.
When you signed up.
Yes.
If
If you're already signed up, it's
Never
fine.
signed up, you wouldn't pay.
If you never signed up, you wouldn't pay. And
Nope.
if you connected before this, you're already connected.
Okay.
And you're paying the extra for the capital, but this is to get at the people that aren't connected, that are avoiding the capital surcharge.
Figure it out.
I'm curious if anybody knows, when a property changes hands, does that, for the most part, automatically, change over?
No,
Or
not unless.
People don't insist on it?
Not unless it's in the mandatory area. If it's in the mandatory area and they weren't hooked up, then they have to be on sale. But I'll tell you, I think our experience is that when people purchase homes, they are hooking up to the water system, that we see a lot more of that.
Right.
People who are coming, especially people who are
Areas
coming
that are
from
used to
places
having
that
it.
have public infrastructure, they see it as a good thing and they want to connect.
Yeah, because I wouldn't buy a home, in this town unless, the previous owner connects up to the water system. I wouldn't. I mean, it's dumb not to do it, because for the most part, at some point in time, if you want to resell a house, well,
There's a low inventory, people will buy it and they'll hook up, which is what they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or you leave the problem for your kids.
Right. Which people do too.
You're thinking of my.
the problem is.
Well, that's one of the sells, is that when someone says, I'm not hooking up, I'm never hooking up, it's like, okay, well, what about your grandchildren?
And it's hard to wait until you have an emergency. A lot of
Yeah,
people
well,
want to
yeah.
wait
Yeah.
until their well fails, but then you're in an emergency situation and, can you get it done within the time frame that you need to get it done? So.
So I have another question. Obviously, all of the local buildings in town use water. Police, fire, library, town hall, on and on. I'm hooked up. Am I paying for that water?
Oh.
Is my, I mean, I see my bill and I can see that the number of gallons and so forth and so on is based on whatever, this amount, this much, this amount, this much. How is the water that's being used by the public buildings being paid? Maybe that's not the right question.
It's on the tax levy,
So,
I guess, if you want to consider it that way. Basically, we're not collecting money
know.
because we're not
You're
charging.
the library for using the water.
Right, well, like, why would we? That's the
Yeah.
taxpayers paying the
Yeah, yeah.
taxpayers, you know, so.
So,
But there is no specific cost for a gallon of, or 1,000 gallons of water. It's just, that's what we're charging for 1,000 gallons of water. So
No,
it's
it's a-
not like we're wasting money.
That's an incremental cost, right? So,
Yes.
you're not gonna have any more or any less operating costs because of that water, with the one exception of perhaps of electricity required to pump it out of the
Yeah.
ground,
Mhm.
But no, we're not charging for it, and most places don't. And I know the state has made an issue of this in recent years, if they really don't want towns doing it, some do, but their directive is that you shouldn't be self-charging yourself. But what we can do, and this is, leads to a good point about the water budget. And you probably recall Jerry Sarasal a few years ago was big on this, and we did a
Very big.
discussion on this, but we also are not doing any indirect cost allocation. And if you remember, that was kind of the end result of that discussion when Jerry was around on the finance committee. Was I could come up with costs that we could allocate, and likewise, water
All the
enterprise fund
charges.
could charge it back, and at the end of the day, essentially it was a wash. So if you're gonna do one, you gotta do the other, right? And so at the end of the day, what's the value of it? Because it ended up not being a big value. And there's also an argument, and we wouldn't have that here, but in places like a water district, this is just basically their business, and they're a government in and of themselves. They have things, like fire protection fees, because, if you're just doing drinking water, you wouldn't need 4, 6, 8-inch mains.
Mhm.
The only reason you have 4, 6, 8-inch main or 8-inch mains is for fire protection, which is a general government public service function, right? So how do you value that? So it gets into a lot of semantics that I don't think that our level of operation really need to be worrying about too much. Unless we see, water use totally spike up, and, significant amount of it is just for public buildings, but that's not the case.
And we did have a large user that hooked up for fire suppression and did not hook up for general water use. And we do charge we changed our regulations to charge a separate annual fee for that.
for water suppression.
Quarterly, so they pay $250 right now per quarter. They're gonna pay $300
Mm.
per quarter starting July 1.
That's one of the new rates.
Mhm.
How about the high school?
The high school, okay, so I know people want to make hay about this. The high school well, we built the well on their land. In order to get that easement, Sheila and the select board at the time gave them free water. So the high school has free water forever, and we have an easement forever. So it's just a straight exchange, and you can go back and second guess that one, but the school committee would not give us the easement without it, so.
Done deal. Is that metered? So do we know how much?
It is
how much
metered.
water
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
using?
we do. I'm
That's-
sure it'll be
that's
better
huge.
on the new school.
Yeah, pretty big.
It's huge. They're a huge user. It's flushing toilets, like, I think.
Just like the
Visitor
visitor center,
Well, the
right?
visitor center is
Well,
probably
they're there
bigger than the
every
high
day.
school.
Could we nick them for the fire suppression at least?
Well, that's a good question, like Jackie. Do we know what our town uses? For instance, what town hall uses, what the.
Yeah, we do.
public
Yeah,
space-
we keep
You got
track of
meters on all
everything.
those
Yes.
buildings, right?
Yeah.
So we know how much
If-
water they're being used, but
If there's a problem,
taxpayers are only being paid for the gallon usage at their,
Right,
their own
and,
residents.
and the rate charged is not to recover what's used by the town.
right.
And I have a question on page 174. It's under the Whitewater contract. And it says item 1, 20,000 per month, which is times 12 is 240. And then 25,000 a year allotment was 265, but it's 365 as the budget.
So then Rich added $100,000. So right now we are in process of going out to bid for a new operator. We're seeing that go up, because this has a 5-year contract. So this has been our
These are our rates 5
for-
years ago.
since the beginning.
Hmm.
So we foresee that going up.
So you're expecting the cost for Whitewater to be the 100,000 more than what you're currently paying?
Or
That's a
more.
lot.
Could be more.
Cause
It could be
DEP,
more.
yeah, is gonna mandate us to have more operators because we have more users.
I think is it that 2,500 mark that you jump into another category?
D2,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like she said, these rates haven't gone up in 5 years, so that's really, I mean, for that.
There's a requirement for 2 operators on site,
At all times.
and right up through now, it's only been 1.
Yeah.
And I don't think that'd be on site all the time either, do they?
Right.
I have another question. I know I've spoken to Rich about it, is in-house billing. Speaking of cost. And at one point, there was some discussion of having in-house billing, but that's still up in the air at this point, or you're waiting for more people to,
It's not in the budget, right?
oh, no, it's not. No.
No, took it out.
This contract
what's
that
this?
we have right
Yeah.
now with Penachuk is just a 2-year contract. So maybe hoping in that 2 years that we can investigate bringing billing in-house.
What's the driver?
It was really great. I mean, at the beginning of our system, when we had customers, it was like $14,000 a year.
And their contract is to cover the entire system regardless of the number of users when they sign up, or?
Yeah,
Oh, so that's why it's 27 last couple of years and jumping to 75 next year based
Right.
on.
Users.
Users.
right, amount of users.
And it's
Well,
posted, they do
users are
everything, they
on-
mail the bills, they do all of that, so it's postage.
But I thought the jump was because you're gonna get a new contract. Is that true or?
So we probably signed that contract about 4 or 5 months ago,
Okay,
so.
okay.
Yeah,
So
it's
going
based on an
forward-
actual contract that's been let, and that was the increase because it's a per user charge.
It is, but the original contract was 27 grand. That was based on what they thought to be
Yeah.
the
got
initial
a good-
user numbers.
And it
right?
wasn't for the first like 3 years, it was under
So
20,000.
they were making money, but then they probably lost money. and-
No, we didn't pay them, we paid them what they billed us, and it was
Okay.
under we carried the 27.
Gotcha.
As we grow, that budget grows.
But it's getting to the point, back to the question of, now we've got 18 months to figure out whether we want to bring the billing in-house.
Yeah.
So, but that's probably not something Kim's gonna, Kim certainly could do a lot of it or some of it, but probably not all of it. It's probably not prudent to put it all on one person either. So but now you're talking about how do you replace a $75,000 contract, and the work that's associated with that is probably another person.
Mhm.
What's the cost benefit of that?
Salary.
Also
Rich,
software.
do other towns do semi-annual or annual billings for water versus a quarterly billing?
Most do quarterly.
Yeah,
Most
we
of
were,
the-
when we did the pro forma, they recommended quarterly to keep the cash flow steady.
Okay.
And
I
there's
know-
also the issue of usage, in any particular period. If you wait
Yeah.
6
Oh my
months,
God.
you got, usage swings up and down all over the place, so.
And if
Yeah.
you have a leak, if there's all kinds of situations where it's better
But
to,
most water rates and the rates we approved are based on tiers, like gallons used per tier. So actually, this is, someday it's a side thing, but in town of Braintree, like 30 years ago, I found this little thing that was happening, that the commercial entities were making out on the water rates because they got billed less frequently than everybody else. So just think about the tiers, right? Or maybe I had the other way around, but if you read the meters 4 times a year, you're gonna fall into the lower tiers first and be charged less. If you read twice a year, you're gonna be up in the higher tiers because your gallonage will be higher, and you'll be charged at the higher rate, so.
Something like this, do you ever see this going electronic? You know what I mean? It's like the postage, the billing, the mailing back, we have
Completely electronic.
well, yeah, I don't know what other towns are doing. Yeah, where I live, it's still the mail too, snail too, but wouldn't this be attractive to cut down your
Yes.
costs?
Mhm.
If I look at everybody else, everyone else trying to get away from printing things and postage and
Yeah.
all that.
Paper, mail.
We had an incentive for people to pay
Mhm.
online,
Yeah.
it'd make a lot of people's jobs easier. You
Yeah.
might have to buy a new piece of software, but
The electric.
you might not have to.
and we do pay online, the water bill, but it does come in the mail still, so I don't know.
Right.
We had at the beginning of the system, we had a little alert
Yeah.
So you would electronically, they would text me when my water bill was ready and then I could pay it online. And then we had to switch companies.
I don't remember,
over
I don't remember
to
that.
Make, oh, it's fabulous. We had to switch companies to make it uniform with our other billing
Oh,
systems.
that was Invoice Cloud
Yes.
and then we switched to,
Invoice
yeah.
Cloud, yeah, but that was a terrific
Yeah.
piece of it.
Yeah.
You never had to see a
Great.
printed
Mhm.
bill.
Yeah.
This seems like we're
Right.
still plodding
In the
along in
Stone
the old
Age.
days.
Going,
yeah.
going backwards a little.
Yep,
Would that be something we'd look at over
yep,
time?
definitely.
Well, that's part of it, bringing it in-house.
Right.
We brought it in-house on our existing software. It supports that type of thing.
So what?
It supports
In-house.
electronic billing.
So I just have another question on the new contract, the three, is that for a set period of time?
For which one?
The 365 for the Whitewater,
So that'll be a 3-year contract.
3-year, thank
with,
you.
A 2-year extension if we want to.
That's a type of thing where we might, depending on the response,
Mhm.
you know, so again,
And the
this
price.
is the cost benefit and the work that, you know, this is the value of work that we do is maybe we negotiate a little bit different arrangement. You know, if you could outsource everything and they take care of everything and that's affordable way to do it, then maybe that's what you do. But then if that becomes unaffordable, you know, this is, you know, why we get into budgets increase sometimes because it might be better off to have a hybrid approach where you hire someone on your own staff to handle things that you don't have to pay a premium for your outside contractor. So,
Are there a lot of companies that do this kind of work?
Not too many.
Not too
No,
many.
no,
Not on Cape Cod.
No.
Yeah,
right,
not that'll come
yeah.
out here.
right,
Not that will come out here?
yeah,
I mean, these people actually put people in place here?
They
yeah.
have
we
to.
have to, it's a license requirement.
Oh, this is the number of people on. site
Yeah.
You have to have based on the usage.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
So this company also does Wellfleet too.
They do.
So this is what I'm talking about, a hybrid arrangement. So we probably don't want to be in the business of hiring the people that are required to have the license, because when they leave, it becomes a disaster trying to find them. Or if they don't do what you're supposed to do, you gotta threaten to fire them at 4 o'clock on June 30th before they file a report to DEP. You know, crazy things happen. So you'd just rather have that liability and that risk on an outsourced vendor. But someone that's not licensed that can do hydrant flushing or whatever, you know, it's just more of a maintenance. Maybe we do take that on and just rely on the outsourced vendor for the license type stuff. But they still gotta be here.
I've got I've got again a question of curiosity here. On page 173, the very top, the administrative coordinator, is Kim St. Auburn.
That's her.
Yes. Her hours have gone from 1.0 to 0.88. Everything else just about in this budget has gone up by a great amount. Is there a reason that, Kimberly, that you were taking less hours?
No, no.
Oh, she's
more
taking
hours.
more hours.
No, it's going, she's going from 0.8, this is current.
Oh, I went the wrong way.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, she's going from 0.88 to.
Actually, we're
1.
gonna,
But you're right, on a lot of the
I'm
budget
causing the
sheet,
demoter
on a
tonight.
lot of the budget.
What are you doing here?
No, but visually, on a lot of the budget sheets, the FY 25 is the first column, and on these, it's
Yeah.
backwards.
All of them,
So you're right,
yeah, it flips.
yeah.
Keeps you on your
I'm bubbled with
toes.
that
Does.
as well.
Yeah.
But the
This is
dates
actually
are
25
yeah.
and 24, not 23 and 24.
24 and 20.
25 and.
Well, they've got the wrong headings at on
The
page
wrong
170,
Well, it says
on
23,
173,
24.
Mary, you have to
it
keep
should
track
be
of these.
fiscal year 24 and then fiscal year 25. Okay.
Gotta get more sleep.
No, it's not, there are no headings on this particular page. Well, I should say that there are headings that
35
are
hours to 40.
Incorrect.
incorrect.
Mira's gonna look into it.
Yeah,
Cause I noticed some the last time.
there are a couple of pages where there aren't any years on too.
Well, they just get blocked out.
Yeah,
by-
yeah.
Yeah, I
just got
think they
blocked
just,
out.
spacing.
Yeah,
Yes,
I just wrote them in. Yeah. Any questions from the Zoom folk?
No, I don't have any.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Roy. Any other questions from the folks here? Thank you very much for coming, John. and
Thank
Thank
you
you
all.
very much for coming, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
You guys can leave. You don't have to stay.
Really gets interesting now.
Thank you.
All righty. This way. I'm going to go back to the agenda. And we're on item number 2. The minutes of our prior meeting, which was February 14th. And Roy was absent for that meeting. And Joanna is absent today. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 14th, 2024?
So moved.
Rick? Do I have a second? Russ? Any discussion on the minutes of February 14th, 2024? All in favor? And as I say, Joanna is absent today, and Roy, you were absent for the meeting. So
Yes.
Tom, Rick, Steve, Paul, Russ, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'm now looking at the agenda for the old business. And we had hoped to have Tom Fitzgibbons here today to talk to us about the budget, the school budget. I'll let Peter make a comment on it's unfortunate.
Yeah, he was unable to make it, so.
We do have a meeting scheduled with district next either Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm hoping to get some updated information that will be helpful, so perhaps next meeting I'll have an update for you on the school stuff.
I just want to make a couple of comments. As I mentioned last week, 4 of us have been coming and going as far as meetings are concerned. And there was an announcement in the paper, a legal announcement, that the Nauset Regional School Committee will be meeting to discuss their fiscal year 25 budget on March 7th at 6 o'clock. And it's listed for Eastham as well. They're listed to discuss their fiscal year 25 budget on March 19th at 5 p.m. Their meetings are held here in the town hall, and the Nauset is down in Orleans. There's a meeting tomorrow at 3:30. And that is the school committee, and they're supposedly discussing the fiscal year 25 budgets as well. That's not a Zoom. The other meetings are both a Zoom and in person. And I think Peter said you were going to try to attend that one. Steve is away and I can't make it. You can't make it either.
Conflict.
Yeah, so do I.
Get there by 3:30.
Yeah.
What is the rules, Jackie, on Zooming, electronic access to meetings? I know it was available during COVID. But
It's
is it
still
required?
available. Nope,
It's not required.
we are running all hybrid meetings now, so you can do Zoom, unlimited Zoom if you want
No,
to.
I know
No, you're
Eastham
talking-
does it. I was really wondering about the school committee meetings.
This meeting is not listed as being, the one tomorrow is not listed as being hybrid.
This is the regional school committee.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have,
budget meetings have not been,
It's a subcommittee meeting. It's not a school.
Oh, okay. And I know they were running into,
no, this is the Nauset Regional School District. It's not a subcommittee.
It's the Budget and Finance
Yeah,
Subcommittee.
yeah.
and you can't find it online. It doesn't have a Zoom link or anything.
There's
I
no,
find a lot of
there's
the
no link
school
on here.
committee stuff online.
I know, it's very
It's,
difficult there.
Talent.
Yes, I agree with you.
Okay.
You could spend hours
Yeah.
trying this and trying
Costs
that.
About how many towns do we have in the region?
Or
Four,
Four.
across 4 different town websites to try to find out
Yeah,
when meetings are being held.
okay.
and different regional.
It shouldn't be
That's
that,
why
it
I
shouldn't be
kind
that
of
hard.
liked it when it was here. We had to move them because there was a conflict with either the planning board or the ZBA, but it was great to have them here.
They could have it at the library. Or from the library,
Mhm.
get a room there that would help.
Well, we've.
It's not even where they have it, it's just finding out when they're having
Yeah,
it.
that's right. If they're having it.
It's too hard. It should not be that
I
hard. to
agree
find.
fully. I agree fully.
Very different from previous administrations.
Really.
That's all I'll tell you.
I don't know, maybe when they come in, we could talk to them about it, but it's
Well, they got a
shouldn't be done like this.
they have a district website. You would think their meetings would be.
I know all the websites. Peter knows all the websites.
I've been
I
in.
mean, we
tons of-
surf them all.
Yes,
You know what I mean? And they're not helpful.
Should not be a treasure hunt.
yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. So I just have a question on the school stuff. The schedule calls for a meeting to discuss the school budgets for March 13th. It's last year we had a joint meeting, and that's not listed as joint on the schedule that I have. And I'm just wondering whether that is still doable, given the dates and everything else that I've just given you.
Well, that's what I hope to find out next week when we meet with the district administration. So those will be some of the things we talk about, first of all, what do you got? Second of all, what's the timeline and how can we fit you into our schedule? So I'll hopefully know that next week.
Okay, so right now I'm keeping that 3/13 date open for discussion on school budgets. Okay. This is budget. Yeah. I have another question on, well, any other old business? I'm going on to new business. I was just wondering, Rich gave out the PowerPoint presentation by Adam Bohannon at our meeting last week. And I didn't know, since we did not discuss that PowerPoint when he was here for the regular budget discussion, whether people would like to have him come back to discuss it further, given the fact that we're getting closer to the end of our budget season, and there's some issues as far as
Yeah, I think Jackie and I haven't touched base recently on this, but we know we do soon because it's something that has to go before the select board. But if we're going to include it as something for consideration at town meeting, it needs to be added. It'll be a separate warrant article.
yeah,
And so we need to discuss that with the select board. And if they,
like an override.
and I think people are generally supportive, but it's just a matter of, with everything that's in front of us, is now the time to do it. So, once we know that it's a warrant article, then I think it would be appropriate to have them come back and speak to you about the
Okay,
warrant article.
okay, I didn't know what the plans were. Okay, so you're planning on meeting with the select board to discuss this further next week?
Well, we have to discuss the warrant, and that is next week's meeting, I think.
Not Mondays.
Not, let me see, today's the next, that would be the 26th. Next Monday is the 26th.
Yeah, the open warrant ends. So we close the warrant to the public on Monday night's meeting. So that kind of begins the kickoff of our discussion of the warrant, but
Do you have a lot of public inputs for the warrant?
we do not.
No.
There sometimes is at the last minute, though. We've had inquiries about a couple, so it's possible.
And that's my other question. I have a couple of things down here. There was some discussion on, I think it was Laura Kelly, about herbicides.
Mhm.
Is that going to be an individual petition?
It's pesticides.
Pesticides, herbicides?
She doesn't want to be an individual petition, and the select board will decide that Monday night.
Okay, as to whether it would be a warrant article? Is that what
That's
you're saying?
correct, yeah.
Okay. And let me see, the zoning, is that going to be, I know they're working on some things too. Is that going to be warrant articles?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess, oh, so those are going to, let me see, so Monday, you're going to decide about the pesticide. And the zoning is, you've said it will be, is definitely a warrant article? Is
There
it?
will be, absolutely. We have them every year
Okay,
and
yeah,
I think there's
okay.
going to be at least two.
Yeah, okay. So,
Can't remember, do they come in and talk with us?
well, that's what that's why I'm
I can't
bringing it
remember
up.
what they did
Yes,
last year.
They
no.
did.
yes,
They
yes,
did?
yes. So I want to,
Last year was a big one though, right?
yes,
It was a lot.
yeah,
There were five. I think there were five.
yeah. So we'll know Monday about the pesticide and I would like to have, I guess it would be Mary and Paul for the zoning.
Mhm. The other thing you have is the
The
stretch
yeah,
energy code.
and Roberta Longley was in touch with me a couple weeks ago. And she is planning to be here at our meeting next week, 28th. And I've given Mira the paperwork, the documents that Roberta put together for that article. And she'll be here to talk about it at our meeting next week.
Well, we get a look, we'll get a look
Yeah,
at that
yeah, yeah,
before. she
yeah,
gets-
yeah. Mira will be including the documents in the packet.
And of course, none of those are financial articles, but
Okay. Let me see.
Energy is.
it's financial for the homeowners.
So that would be the 26th. Alrighty. So we'll have to see next week, the 28th, we're scheduled to have CPA is to discuss the CPA articles. So that would be Paul. Right?
Paul usually sends them to me. I haven't received them yet, but I can.
I'm sorry?
Paul usually sends them to me. I haven't gotten them yet, but it just, I'm sure I will. So.
Yeah, I think he and Stacy are working on the language for the we have we have seven articles. One, the 8th is the 40,000 for the administrative assistant.
But we had a CPA administrator now.
Yeah, Stacy Wadey.
So would she be the one to come in, talk, or does Paul have to come?
No, Paul usually, he's one that usually comes to our meetings and,
Would that be because we didn't used to have a
Yeah.
CPA administrator?
well,
She's in charge, I'd have her come in.
Yeah.
She's not in charge. Paul
no,
supervises her directly.
Paul is in charge, yeah.
I mean, not to undermine Stacy's role. I'm just saying he's the director of community development.
Yeah. So next week is the 28th and we have Roberta Longley coming to talk. We have, we'll have Paul coming on the CPA. And is there? And I had down, I wasn't sure when I put my notes together about the individual petitions, so nothing to do with the police at this time. Or you're gonna decide that on next Monday, that's the. How do you want to do that?
Because they just did an agenda review today. It's not on the agenda right now.
Oh.
See the harm in having it on there. We
I can ask them.
discuss the ramifications.
Mhm. And the decision will be made, well, it's probably maybe too close. The decision on Laura Kelly on the pesticide, that you say that'll be made on Monday.
Mhm.
So if we wanted to have her come in to talk to us, it may, on the 28th. Are we having too many things on the 28th?
I mean, she spent a half an hour with the select board. You could watch that tape if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
interested in it,
yeah.
rather than have her come in. I'm sure she'd be happy to come in if you
Yeah,
want.
yeah. Okay, so next, the 28th, we've got Roberta. We've got CPA is the main discussion. And then we've got Roberta. And we've got potentially Adam and Laura Kelly. And the zoning. That's a lot.
I feel like,
I think you can do that in 2 hours.
I feel like we usually have a meeting later in March
Yep.
on review of the warrant. Because at some point we'll have a draft warrant out.
Mhm.
So if we can hold off to a little bit later in March, I think anything that you've missed, you could wrap up and have at that point.
Yeah, we have the articles review for the, oh, no, actually, that's just the budget recap. We have an open meeting date for March 6th. That's
Yeah, that might be a little soon though, because like I said, we have things to talk out with the select board.
yeah.
So I'm saying, you got plenty of time and plenty of meeting dates. You don't have to meet every Wednesday.
No, no.
If you wait, the little longer you wait, the little more clarity and certainty you will have on some of these things that might make it easier for you.
Because maybe we should wait for some of these, March 20th, that's a regular finance meeting. And that's the town meeting warrant and zoning and other articles, so. Maybe next week we just have Roberta and discuss the police.
In CPA.
And yeah, I wasn't.
And then Laura and everybody else you can put off till
Yeah,
later.
yeah, right, yeah. Okay, so next week it's CPA, it's Roberta Longley on the Climate Action Committee Energy Code. And it's potentially Adam. Depending on Monday's Board of Selectmen meeting. Okay. All righty. Is there anything else for old business? New business, anything for new business? Item number 6, Town Manager Report.
I have a few things. I haven't done my report for the select board meeting yet, but I will tell you that the towns did apply for the efficiency and regionalization grant for elementary schools
Oh,
and
yeah.
others, so that it has been submitted
Mm,
by Peter Lombardi. We also have the regional dispatch grant for the 4 towns, Provincetown through Eastham. That is due March 7th. And as of this date, we have Provincetown, Wellfleet and Eastham committing. I'm still waiting to hear about Truro, but basically it looks like we'll have hopefully the 4 towns.
That's for the study, right?
This is the second, so we did the study. The study is now complete. We just got, we haven't given it to the select board yet. We just got it yesterday. But the grant is once a year. So if we don't apply for it in 2 weeks, then we have to wait a whole nother year. So we're going to do it. And that would be studying the feasibility of whether we can build up over the police station, a dispatch facilities, regional dispatch facility. So that's what that'll look at. the
It's
feasibility.
actual dollars for engineering and design.
It's 100% funding.
mm.
Yeah.
Good.
And they pay for the first 3 years of the actual regional dispatch, 100% of the cost for 3 years. The 4th year, they pay 75%, and the 5th year, they pay 50%. So
The grant does? So
if you
the
get
cost of the
awarded,
dispatch would come off the books for 4 years?
yes.
It wouldn't come up.
Well, 50%.
We wouldn't want to do it that
not
way.
funded.
Rich would want to board it.
The state.
State?
Yes.
It's crazy.
No, you
I
gotta
think
keep,
they're trying to obviously, it's much better service level and much cheaper if they can,
Combined.
and it's paid for out of the the cellular, there's a little tax on your cellular bill that goes towards
Right, see this
911.
Oh, it's good to know. That's where it goes.
That's where it
Sure where
goes.
that goes.
If it was.
How long have
much-
you been wondering, Tom?
So we might as well get our share.
I understand,
Stop reading
but
my
if it's
bill.
much better service and cheaper, why do we need an incentive to do it?
It's not cheaper, really.
Yeah.
It doesn't look to me like it's cheaper, but it is definitely better service, more efficient, and the training, everything we would be able to do in a simpler, more streamlined way.
I think that's something that needs to come back to educate people, why we're doing it, and I think a lot of people come at regionalization for cost savings, and I know when the chief was here, he was very clear about that, it's
Yeah.
gotta be about maintaining and the quality of service. to
And
those-
sustainability over time,
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
think that's a message we gotta keep
Yes.
bringing forward.
One person on duty, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Is it
Relying on
working?
4 people to do that.
Mhm,
It's-
Yeah.
mhm.
Well, and we just, the study just identified that we're 34 or 36% of the call volume. So we have the most calls,
Interesting.
more than Provincetown,
Mm.
which surprises me.
Yeah.
Population's a lot lower down.
Yeah, but they have so much activity and so many visitors, I would think that that
Mm.
would spike it, but we have
Their hours of
population year
operations are
round.
later.
What did you say, Rick?
Their hours of operation are longer than ours. though.
Yeah.
So it's a different shift.
It is, it's a totally
It's a
different,
different shift, okay.
Their
totally
hours of
different
operation.
operation.
That's all right.
But,
good.
but back to did I hear you say that they were going to put it in the police station? Is that what they're talking
We-
about doing?
We can't have a dispatch center that's away from a tower.
Mhm.
So right now,
You
we're
felt-
looking at our
Yeah,
police station and building up.
so you'd add another floor to the police station? That's what
Yes.
I thought you said. I
We'd
just wanted to
rent-
make sure
yeah.
I understood.
Would they pay for construction cost?
100%, yeah.
They'd pay for a whole separate site if we located it on a site, but there's really,
It would be easier if we could just do it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then the other special thing is our community fund legislation.
Oh, yeah,
Rich
mhm.
and I, Senate Council, it passed through the House, and then Senate Council is where we seem to get stuck with Senate Council a lot, but anyway, they had some questions about the community fund. I think we pretty much answered them, hopefully to their satisfaction last week, so we're trying to keep it moving forward, but it is moving
Does
forward.
it have to go back to the House for any changes?
If they change the language in a substantial way, the select board has to vote on it and then it has to go back to the House. And of course, then the crunch would be, can we do that before July 1st? Can we get it all done before July 1st? We don't want to have to do it again.
Right.
But Julian Sears Aid is very, very on it. He seems
Good.
So those are the big 3. We have a lot of capital project issues, but I don't want to go into those necessarily tonight. And I just, for our town report, I just added up our grants for last year, and the town received $4,040,000 worth of grants last year. And that does not include the loan forgiveness for water. So I've got to get with Rich to add those numbers in, but that is the highest we've ever been,
Mm.
close to 10% of our budget.
Does that include the Rock Harbor? money?
It does.
I've been by that a couple of times in the last couple of days. I don't see the dredge down there anymore. Is it finished?
It's finished. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
done.
haven't seen it the last couple
It
of
was
days.
extremely efficient this time around.
Mhm.
How much in grants do you usually get? Roughly?
Well, if you
on
don't count
year?
water loan forgiveness, we've been anywhere from in the 2 to 3 million range. So this is a good
Mm.
bump. And again, it doesn't include water. Once I add that, I think we'll be pretty high.
How many grants does that?
It doesn't
represent?
include ARPA either.
Ah, yeah, oh,
Gotta do that one.
this is another good example of, and I haven't studied her numbers to really speak to it, but intuitively I kind of know. Another good example of having capacity and having the staff available to do these things.
Yeah.
This is one of the results.
Yeah.
So I know everybody always looks at the operating budget, says it's going up. Well, it's went up because we added a person. What's the result of having that person? Reduced maintenance costs,
Yeah.
more grants, good
And
things happen.
It absolutely correlates to lower taxes in the Rock Harbor because that $1.3 million grant really kept those costs down. So,
It would be good to know how many grants, just to your point, when the chief was in here, he's talking about all the grants, some of us are wondering how many people are writing all these grants. I know he's looking at them, but
He
somebody
has-
else is actually
he
writing
has one person.
one person, but that's it's a lot of work writing grants. I know that. And, it'd be interesting to find out, does that 4 million or whatever it is, does that represent 5 grants or does that represent?
Oh, I can tell you
25,
that. Yeah,
you know
I'll
what I
look
mean?
at that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody does it. It's really very spread around.
All the departments, you mean?
It
Yeah.
really is.
It
Yeah.
really goes to your area of
Expertise.
interest or
Sure.
responsibility, you're not gonna, if you're the community development guy, you're not gonna know the police grants,
Yeah, I understand.
I don't have any of Paul's in there yet, but he had small ones this year, so.
Do we summarize them in the warrant or anything for the?
No, but I was gonna do it in the town report because it's, I know, taxes are rising. I know people are concerned. I just want them to know that we're working hard to try and
I think that's very important.
mitigate that.
Hmm.
Either we use the grants to get extra things that don't have to be paid for out of the operating budget, or they reduce capital costs. So those are the two big areas.
It's good.
And we have a lot of planning money that's grants. So we don't generally spend a lot of money on planning initiatives. We usually go for grants with those, and that helps us in the end too.
Well, and even the story you had about the regional call center, when that's amazing,
Huge.
Rick's point. I
Mm.
didn't realize
100%.
we have to incentivize to do the right thing.
Yes,
Mary Paul's got his hand up.
the answer is yes.
Mary,
Oh, sorry?
Paul's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, Jackie, just to build on your point, I think having the letter come from you is a good thing. I also think we should probably put it in the letter from the finance committee because
Okay.
taxes will be going up. And there should be a paragraph or two saying, yeah, it's going up, but it could have been
Mhm.
worse. Or
Right.
here's how, right, so-
Right. Just
so-
imagine what you could be paying.
well, pretty much. I mean, nobody's going to be happy that the taxes are going up.
Well, I was trying to do
Gotta
the,
deliver that the right way.
I was trying to do the 4 million based on your assessment of this year, every $100,000 is $15,
Right.
but. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would fit into that formula perfectly.
A good comment, Paul.
Thank you.
But it's actually Art's idea, and it was important to him to put it in the report every year. And so I picked up, of course, where he left off. And so I was trying to do it today and I realized, oh my gosh, we're way ahead of
Mhm.
where we have been in the past. So that's great.
Mhm. And I have a couple of questions. How are things going with the town hall renovation?
They're going very well in terms of getting the work done. They're going disappointingly in terms of the budget. So we are over budget with 2 current change orders and
When you say over budget, because there was 680 from CPA
Mhm.
and over 300 from prior. So
Yeah.
that's a million, close to 900 or something. a
yeah, but the
million.
contract was $1,066,000 just for the
66.
construction.
Right, right.
That doesn't include a lot of other things. So that's what I've just issued a notice to both the contractor and the architect that, we're out of money.
Mm.
But part of it was estimating that so many percentage of the wood trim and everything would be salvageable, and none of it is salvageable. And we should have known that. So again, it's like, I think we underestimate trying to get that contract price down, but now, we're going to pay for it anyway.
So what, you don't have any idea at this point of exactly how much more?
No, I have an estimate right now that I've gone over with Tina, and that we're going to hopefully be transferring some money from free cash into the maintenance line item for town hall for town meeting. but I think most of the ripping apart is done.
Mhm.
So I think we're over the big hurdle in terms of
Cost.
finding rot,
Mm, mm.
finding rotten things.
I'm waiting to see when they fix the cupola.
I know. Yeah,
That's gonna be,
it's the color of the cupola that's gonna be the,
yes, yeah. I,
we have to pay for it ourselves so that we don't have to
Hmm.
use the CPA color.
I have another question on the Brovitz. What's the story on Tea Time and Town Center Plaza and all those things? Is there any update on any of that?
We have the contract is not signed, but we are going out for prices for the pro forma. If that's what you mean.
Mhm.
And that's basically, if we build all the housing and we build everything, what will it cost and how do we leverage, affordable versus workforce versus all of that? We're doing that. They're still working on the road. And obviously, we're still working on the zoning. So those three things.
When you say the road, the off bracket road you're talking about?
The new Main Street.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And I just have another thing. There's another article in the paper and it's not the only one that's been in there lately on the Del Gizzies.
Mhm.
And we've got 8, I think I found 8 parcels that we're in, haven't paid their taxes for.
We do not.
Hmm?
We
Hmm?
do not.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
They do not, they're, I think, current with taxes with the town of Eastham.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Because I have the article that was in the,
Mary, we took 2 of their pieces of real estate. Since then, they have been current on their taxes.
Oh,
They
really?
sometimes are behind like a half a year, but not.
Yeah, they might be back. I followed up with
Yeah.
tax collector on this. And I think they might be back off on the last bill.
Yeah.
Where we.
Hmm.
But they're not, definitely not in
Not more
arrears.
than a year.
I mean, if you look at Truro, which.
I know, it's huge.
800,000.
Oh, I know, it's
We're
huge.
very on it.
yeah, no, I had taxes due of not quite, a little over 21,000
Yeah. No.
of the 8 parcels that were in the legal
Yeah, so
notice.
once we got that big check for 130,000, ever since then.
So how come you don't have a check?
Was there a catch-up check?
Did you go
That was
collect
their
it?
catch-up check. Yeah, so we're in good shape with them. It doesn't mean that we're not still
Oh, yeah,
pursuing
issues,
them for
yeah.
all kinds of issues, but
Yeah, okay. Any other comments, questions, issues,
I have one question.
Tom?
Jackie, anything from the select board relative to the regional school MOU? The draft and then the comments we provided?
I'm just putting that in their packet for Monday night. So
Okay.
they'll look at it Monday night.
Yeah, it'd be
And
good,
I should put that on the agenda too.
be good to get that feedback and that we,
Yep.
we can make sure things don't get ahead of us without East
Regional
Ham.
agreement, you mean?
Yes, the
Yeah.
regional.
Yeah, the
School.
regional agreement.
So they haven't looked at it yet.
No,
Okay, got it.
I think the school committee might have put that on the back burner for a while. Because of budget season and everything. Well, they're not gonna have it ready for this town meeting anyways.
okay.
But it'd be good to get the select board's feedback so that we can get ahead of the game while
But-
they're quiet.
But does that mean, that means that the 3-year average business will not be done?
That's
Pretty
correct.
much, yeah.
That way it would've been-
I think we want a 3-year average, and
Well,
if
but
it's
that-
not
that-
approved until it's not approved by this town meeting, then that means that we're another year without a 3-year average
That's
of,
right.
of calculation.
But there's so many other issues, you know what I mean, that is
Oh, the
one, that's
timing,
one of the
but-
important one. They need to get the draft MOU with our comments, right?
Yes,
No.
that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give them the draft that we have with the changes that I think Brewster made.
Yep,
And then your comments on top of that. So I'm
Right.
giving them both of those things.
And that's going to be Monday?
Mhm.
You're planning on
I
Monday?
don't know if they're gonna talk about
Gotta
it for
give
a
it
long,
to
but
them.
it's
Oh, oh.
definitely gonna go in their
Okay,
packet.
okay.
Changes were probably the one you have is the changes that were recommended by the lawyer,
Okay,
like their counsel,
okay.
and then the Brewster letter.
there was a letter in the front and then.
Well, maybe I'll add the Brewster.
I think they're all together, Jackie, in the thing you originally received. I thought
Okay.
it was the lawyer's MOU with the Brewster letter in the front of it. And
Okay,
then we sent you separately an email with the comments.
got
we
that.
sent.
So I've got I've got the draft mock-up, you know, with changes,
Yeah.
and I've got I missed the Brewster letter, I guess. I gotta go back and look at that.
You have a clean mock-up, right? You're not gonna give them
No, I have the changes. I
Right.
want them to see the changes.
all the changes.
From the attorney you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, there, it's just it's just red and black. It's not like
Right.
30 people haven't gone on there and made changes. They can handle it.
Trying to make their job easier. That's what we're here for.
I know, but you gotta, they won't be able to tell what's changing.
I
so think
understand.
it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
good for them
No,
to
I
see that.
agree, I agree.
Um,
So, what all I'm saying is that the 3-year average business doesn't sound like it's going to make it.
No, but we never thought it would. We really thought it would be a 2 or 3 year
Mhm.
process.
Anyway, okay. Anything else from anybody on the committee? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Russ? Do I have a second?
Second.
Tom? All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 0.